A Toyota Corolla would probably do a job for most of us, most of the time, but yet we want to have at least a Mercedes or a Porsche, or do you like go even further, right, to the extremes. And the interesting thing, I believe, is that...
So that's the overarching lever that we're trying to pull. Money can't buy this.
Money can't buy. This kind of more accessible luxury is rather a new concept in the way that until the late 70s or even early 80s was very clear. There are the haves and the have-nots. And this is now all blurred, so that basically now everyone can have a piece of luxury each and every day in each and every product category. When we're looking into the 1950s or even 60s and 70s, not much in terms of premium or luxury brands were really officially sold in Asia. That means
when everything is luxury, nothing is luxury. So how do we, as a brand owner, circumvent this in a genuine, savvy way? Hello and welcome to another episode of Playing the Inner Game podcast. My name is Michael Campion and my guest this week is Matthias Weiskopf. Matthias is the founder of LuxLink and he has deep experience in the luxury automotive industry, having most recently been the regional head of McLaren and also worked for the likes of BMW and Porsche all across Europe and in Asia. And he joins me this week for a masterclass on luxury branding, consumer psychology, and buying behavior. And I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. See you on the other side. Matthias, really nice to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on Playing the Inner Game.
Thank you
for wanting to do
Michael.
this for a while. Been wanting to do this for a while. Good excuse for us to catch up.
absolutely. Amazing.
So what I'd love to do is just go straight in the deep end. No warm up. We're getting straight into the world of luxury branding, luxury psychology. I want to start with needs versus wants, or wants and needs, because nobody needs the Birkin bag. Some people would argue with that watching. Nobody needs the Birkin bag. Nobody needs the Bugatti or the McLaren car. Nobody needs the Rolex. And yet so many of us want one. So how do you kind of deconstruct the difference between wants and needs? Let's dive into the deep end of the psychology behind luxury branding. Where would you like to start with kind of that opening statement, wants versus needs?
I think this is pretty much just like the center of luxury altogether, right? When we look at it, because this is something that really differentiates what you just mentioned, right? What do we really need? We need to have a bowl of rice or butter or something like this, right? And of course we need to have clothing. And on the other hand, what we want or what we desire to have, right? And this of course goes across categories, whether it's fashion, clothing, whether it's the way we travel, the way we choose our way of transportation, the car we drive. A Toyota Corolla would probably do a job for most of us, most of the time, but yet we want to have at least a Mercedes or a Porsche, or do you like go even further, right, to the extremes of a Bugatti or something else. And the interesting thing, I believe, is that this, of course, was always the case when we go back in time. Like when we're looking into the really like ancient times even, the difference is that this kind of more accessible luxury is rather a new concept. A new concept, I mean, in the way of just like that until the late 70s or even early 80s was very clear. There are the haves and the have-nots. That means, and this is now all blurred, so that basically now everyone can have a piece of luxury each and every day in each and every product category. So much so that basically luxury has been tacked on to products where you normally would say, this is not really a luxury category in itself.
Very interesting point. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it in terms of that slow creep of luxury into every segment, every product, every industry, because it just gives you the taste, doesn't it? Once you've got a luxury food item that is within your grasp, once you've got a little piece of furniture, a little piece of technology in your pocket that would have previously been preserved or reserved for the haves and not the have-nots, you start to get a taste. And, you know, one of my favorite quotations, we're going way off tangent already, is wealth is like seawater. The more you drink of it, the more you want. Same for fame, right? The more fame you have, the more thirsty you become. And it's maybe similar for luxury goods. How do you see that?
If you've been enjoying the podcast and you're finding my channel valuable, can I please ask you a very quick favor? Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on audio, please just take 2 seconds to hit subscribe. When you do that, you help me grow the show, you keep the wheels turning, and enable me to get bigger and better guests. Thank you.
For each and every brand, pretty much, you have just the top customers, the top clientele, the ones who are buying not only a Bugatti, but who are really working on the creation or a curation. And in case you have seen it by any chance, there is now on auction, it will be auctioned off soon, the McLaren collection from Monsieur OJ, one of the co-founders of McLaren Automotive. So this is the absolute top.
Yeah.
Underneath, you have the very, very good clients, the ones who, let's say in Porsche terms, always buy a Porsche Turbo or Turbo S or the top range of the more normal accessible models. Yeah. So the ones where you can go into the showroom as soon as there is availability, just buy one of those. Then you have the regular customers who buy on a regular basis, and I repeat customers as well, very important, and the bread and butter customers, the core, who buy every time a new Cayenne, but maybe not the top range, but you like a standard model. Under this, then you have the more aspirational ones who go maybe first when we're talking about automotive, who start maybe with a second hand, with a used car, or with the entry model. Again, in Porsche terms, it would be maybe a Boxster, the most standard version without a lot of options. And then very important, you have the fans, the people who would like to get into, the people who maybe attend an event, maybe buy some merch, people who would you like come to your shows, events, showrooms, and all these kind of things, and even have a poster as a kid at home from your very brand. And as a brand, you always need to cater for all these 5 categories. Yeah. Very, very differently, and this makes it as well fun to really work with brands, build brands, and build desire.
No, it's great fun. I'm thinking almost of it. You'll conceptualize it better than I will, being the industry veteran. But like a pyramid or an ascension model, right? Yes. So you've got kind of your fans of the McLaren F1 team. They'll buy the orange cap, or certainly they don't call it orange, do they? What's it is tangerine?
Yeah,
what are they?
No, it is orange.
Papaya.
Papaya. This, yeah. Papaya,
I knew it was a fruit. Yeah, the papaya cap, and they buy the merch, like you said, and they have the aspiration to ascend through the pyramid, through the layers, right?
And the interesting thing is, I mean, the lowest 4 or the lower 4 are all accessible for everyone, and the top one is by invitation only. Yeah. And even when you have like all the money in the world, you can't just buy yourself access to it. This is comparable a bit with haute couture. So because when we're thinking of a fashion show, then of course you have a lot of people who are sitting around the runway, but I'm talking about the clients. And the same very often you have in automotive and other categories as well, that these are the people who are not seeking the limelight necessarily, but they're staying rather away from it, who have the real means. Very often it's old money, and this is the same whether in the Western world or in Asia as well. So this is really interesting. And from a brand perspective, of course, what you always want to see is like, how can you develop one segment, ideally just like to upgrade them into the next segment. Yeah,
so we're constantly wanting to move our fans, customers, prospects, clients, whatever you want to call them, through the different tiers.
Correct.
Ascend through the models. Yeah. I mean, could you give us maybe a bit of insight how you did that at McLaren and how you thought about it? Because that would be very interesting for me, or maybe one of your other previous brands that you worked with. Yeah.
In McLaren as a brand altogether, it's just like already now 60 plus years old. The automotive side itself is just like only now 12, 13 years old, which is fairly young, which most people don't even know. So there's only just a very, very young brand still. So different to other brands like Porsche or Ferrari who are around for 70 or 80 years, where you have multiple generations. So this again has a huge impact. Whether you can learn something from, let's say, your dad or dad's generation, because it's still a male-dominated category of collecting altogether. So it's still 9 in 10 collectors are still men these days. So hopefully it will change over time, since my daughter is still like very much into cars as well. And I think here it's always important, which is taking McLaren and comparing it with Ferrari. Nowadays in racing, they're competing head to head, right? In the automotive segment, on the road car segment, in a way as well, because they have comparable products when it comes to the entire brand setup and the entire just the buildup of desirability. This is still quite different. Yeah. So because in McLaren, everyone who thinks McLaren thinks first and foremost of Formula One. Yeah. Right? And not so much of road cars. I think when you go around, whether here in Singapore or somewhere else in the world, a lot of people still would not necessarily recognize that there is a McLaren road car, and even couldn't point them out when you show them around on the streets. That's very different with Ferrari, because Ferrari has been always there in both road cars as well as in now driving again or racing again in Le Mans again, as well as, so you have road cars, you have sports cars, and you have the race cars in Formula One. So this is something which makes a huge difference. And to your question, how you basically can nurture and groom basically customers from very, very early on.
Yeah.
And then from a retail perspective, and this is one thing what we have done in Hong Kong a few years ago, when taking over then the retailer, to really have a concept that you really see to like how to attract the different kind of clientele for the very next step. For their very next step, because that's always important. At the end of the day, everyone wants to go to the top. Not everyone has the means, and not everyone is ready for going to the top. So therefore, to really create something that makes sense for them as the next step, so that they feel to the fullest that they really experience the brand in a way that is to their personal, individual, full enjoyment.
Yeah.
Because again, as you said in the beginning, it's not that you need to have a Ferrari, you want to have a Ferrari or the likes. And therefore, it's just like that you can maximize the joy and the experience in your circumstances.
Yeah.
It might be the way you drive, the way how you use the car, who you use the car with. Is it a car club? Is it with friends? Do you drive by yourself? Is it... We both know Hong Kong very well. Is it a Sunday morning drive that you just like go to Sheco or something else? Yeah. So what exactly do you use the car for? And the better you understand this from an, let's say, brand and sales perspective, the better you can cater for the individual client.
Yeah, I love that. There's a million ways I want to go with it. So I need to do a good job myself of not losing track. So one button I want to press is heritage, which I'll come to later. So let's remember that together. I want to touch the heritage one because I think it's difficult for new brands, challenger brands, who can't lean on heritage. They can't lean on 100 years of tradition of Swiss, Swiss watchmaking or Ferrari's reputation in Formula One, for example. But what I'd like to touch on first is, as you alluded to, like, what is the car for? Like, what is the emotional effect that people are buying into? What is the feeling they're buying when they enter the showroom and they actually purchase something from McLaren or purchase something from Ferrari? Presumably, it's status.
It definitely is.
If we're going into the generational psychology part of it, right?
It definitely is status. And then when we're thinking of car terms, then definitely a Ferrari is always like a Birkin bag. You don't need to explain it to everyone. Everyone, even when they're far away from ever having access to this product and the brand, everyone understands Ferrari is on top, Birkin bag MS is on top.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is the same does not work with McLaren, especially in markets which are maybe not as mature from the clientele. And as a fun fact, what you sometimes find is that, let's say, the partner from a customer, potential customer, has a very, very strong influence, not only because she decides about whether he should buy the car or not, but she might have to justify to her best friend that the McLaren is actually as good as a Ferrari. As long as there's still a question mark or any kind of doubt, it's for him basically an issue that his girlfriend cannot really justify that the McLaren has the same weight and basically glamour factor as a Ferrari would have.
And that's where the storytelling component comes in.
Exactly.
Right?
So that means in a way you could say that the McLaren sometimes is for the people who really know. And who are sometimes even beyond this stage of saying like, okay, I go just for the status. Because the status in some areas is very, very clear. And when you're in a McLaren community and you have the latest and the greatest model of the brand, then of course it's very, very easy because then you have the trump card. Yeah. But if you go into a territory where nobody knows the brand or the brand is not that known, and people cannot really judge, is it a top range model? Is it as good as a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or slightly beneath? Then it's not necessarily the status card you're pulling there. So then it's more I'm the one who's really into this engineering. I'm really into this brand and product. I really like the way it drives. And then you go for it. Yeah.
And that's where you have to get the positioning really dialed in, right? Because Ferrari is very much a hero and leader brand, right? It's red, it's sexy, it looks phenomenal, it's fast. Everyone knows it. The interesting thing actually is we just take it so for granted that you see the Ferrari shape, right? You don't even need the color. You could put a drape over a Ferrari and know what was underneath. And we know it's just the creme de la creme. Same way, for various watch brands or a Birkin bag. But that takes so much work, right? We just take it for granted now that, everyone knows Ferrari is market leader. Okay, But that didn't just happen by accident, did it? It's carefully curated and designed and engineered over decades and decades. So I guess the transferable principles and lessons are what we're looking for, right? So if I'm a challenger brand like McLaren, or if I'm creating a completely new brand from scratch, like a lot of the Chinese EVs, for example, what transferable principles and techniques can we take from these guys and borrow to make us great?
It's a very good question, very relevant question, a question that a lot of, marketeers definitely have, right? Whether it's automotive or other categories. And I think we need to take a step back here, because Ferrari is really, it's very unique in the way it has evolved over these 80 plus years, right? And of course, being the first one, being in Formula One, there's only one first one. And when you do something for 70, 80 years, then of course you can't just like short track or fast track, something like this. There are no shortcuts basically, right? And then of course always this kind of Italian heritage and passion and all these kind of things, a lot of positive stereotypes that just build and stack on each other, right? So this is definitely there, so that a lot of people have a lot of positive association just with Ferrari in itself, whether they drive it, whether they drive it well, whether it suits them, just like from their style and their lifestyle and anything, is a totally different story. So therefore, just to replicate something like this is maybe not even something that you really want to have, because what you eventually want to have is, for every brand, is you need to have some commercial success, right? And therefore you need to find the way just to make this happen. And when we're looking into this, when we have Ferrari and McLaren, they're always competing for the same customer, basically, right? In each and every market. Yeah. Interestingly, you rarely have a mix of a customer who has, most customers have multiple cars, obviously, right? You're like when you're in this segment. And definitely when you're collectors, they have multiple cars. And but what hardly ever mixes is a Ferrari and a Lamborghini in the same collection. This just like doesn't really work. Yeah. Ferrari and McLaren, much more so, right? However, when there is the situation that it's either a Ferrari or a McLaren, then we see that the Ferrari, since they have a wider product portfolio, they have better accessibility to some of the more entry-level models, so more drivable cars for every day. Ferrari wins in this way. Yeah. To come to this replication opportunity, or to to learn, I think it's much more important that when you do not have this extremely strong brand equity and asset as you have it with Ferrari, to really see how do you actually connect to individual customers. And that means it's not a global affair, it's a local affair, what you're looking at. There's only so much what you, from a global perspective, in case of McLaren, it would be the UK, the headquarter in Woking, what they do, okay? So, and that means it's the brand overall that you build and shape to some extent with Formula One. For the last 20 odd years or so, it was rather not so strong, or 10 plus years at least. And the last few years, again, very, very positive, which definitely helps. Yeah. At the same time, then, when it comes to any kind of campaigns or something that you directly do with your customer, with your clients, is relatively limited, because the day-by-day interaction and engagement, this happens between your retailer and your retail staff and the customer. And this is something where you always can see the big difference in terms of professionalism between individual retail teams and the clients. Yeah, because the task and ask is always the same. That the clients, they don't need the McLaren, they don't need the Ferrari, they want to have it, and that you identify what can you do to amplify this experience they could have with this car, they could have with this product. Yeah.
So you managed North Asia for McLaren, right? We had Hong Kong, Korea, Taiwan, India, from memory. That's right. Right. So how did you kind of help lead those retail teams? Because I'd love to actually just transport ourselves into the moment. Yeah. Right? It's high ticket sales, right? Exactly. Whether you're selling services, physical products, cars, whatever it is. It's very important to get that skill set dialed in for so many people, regardless of what industry they're in. What were some of the trainings, learnings that you tried to give to the retail experience team in those contexts?
I think the interesting thing is, when we here again look into it, it's the McLaren is sold these days into more than 40 markets around the world, right? So I was looking after 4 of those.
Yeah.
Since I lived in Hong Kong, I knew Hong Kong, I knew the landscape, I knew the clientele. Since I've been working with Ferrari and Porsche there before, so therefore there was a good overlap in the market, and it was not all new to me. Taiwan was new to me, and so was South Korea and India. And all these 4 markets, that's the interesting thing. We're selling the very same product. We're selling the very same brand. We need to have 4 totally different approaches on retail level. Yeah. And this was, in the beginning, the very biggest learning for me. Since when we just compare these 4 markets in a nutshell, you could say that by far the most sophisticated clients in Asia, next to Japan, you definitely find in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And this is for the very simple reason that already in the 1950s, Porsche started selling cars in Hong Kong. There was no Mercedes officially being sold, and many other brands not. And I mean, when we're looking into the 1950s or even 60s and 70s, not much in terms of premium or luxury brands were really officially sold in Asia. That means a customer today in Hong Kong, they have already had through 3 generations the opportunity to have this brand exposure to luxury brands, automotive and others. So therefore, this gives you a totally different foundation from the client perspective, as well as from a brand perspective, to position your brand and to interact with the brand. When you then go to Taiwan, what you have different there is just that you have, of course, a different culture again. Everything when it comes to selling luxury items or curating collections started much, much later. So therefore, they're lacking in comparison to Hong Kong, at least a generation, maybe even a bit more. However, what really is the big difference there, that the retail partner we had there with McLaren has become for the second time the global retailer of the year. And that means basically that the team is so extremely professional. Next to McLaren, they're as well the retail partner for Bentley and Aston Martin for all of Taiwan. So that they have a very, very strong network of clients. And among those clients, what they had before, this kind of pyramid, right, where they have a lot of good clients and ambassadors, as well as these top clients who are the collectors, right? So that means this helps a lot, tremendously. And when you sometimes think, can't we just like copy and paste something from what they do into another market? It's exactly these fine, small things in between that you just can't copy. And their concept in Taiwan was very simple, to say what we do and what we create, even for all our 3 brands differently for the clients, is money can't buy.
Okay.
And this is exactly what all these customers are longing for. Something money can't buy.
So that's the overarching lever that we're trying to pull. Money can't buy this.
Money can't buy.
Okay. Yeah.
And then in the other 2 markets, quickly, I mean, Korea was just like much more new to everything automotive when it comes to whether it's the Ferrari or McLaren or even Porsche. Was very, very new, very more, they wanted to experience the brands, but there was this concept of brand loyalty just didn't exist. So it's not that you come from a family of Ferrari owners or Porsche owners and then you just like, you find your own way and you shape it. So this was that you have a lot of much, much younger clients in comparison to most other markets. And they were just trying one brand today and maybe another brand tomorrow, which of course is a challenge for both retailers as well as for brands on a global perspective. To really then form a more lasting and meaningful relationship.
Yeah.
And India, of course, is absolutely fascinating on so many levels, because I helped to bring the brand new to the market. So basically to launch the brand in the market. Then, of course, you have the vastness of the country. You have a sufficient number of millionaires and billionaires and everything. So money is definitely not an issue at all. What you need to have as well is you need to build the brand. Because a lot of people, even potential clients, are not really aware of the brand. Everyone knows Ferrari, Lamborghini as well, McLaren, not yet. So it means you need to build the brand, and then what you need to do as the single retailer in the market, you need to cover the entire market. you have one showroom in Mumbai, but then there are so many other, at least 10 different destinations that they're very wealthy people. And that means basically that you need to have a lot of roadshows. You have a very different approach and a very different way, just like to first build a brand, to build up your pipeline of customers, to convince the customers, because then it's pre-sales, it's sales, and after sales is very important as well in these kind of markets. So that means 4 markets, 4 very different approaches, 4 very different kind of experiences, and 4 different ways or 4 different kind of secrets to success, if you want to call it this.
Every single day, I watch smart and otherwise successful people struggle to communicate their value. They have the expertise, but they're not brilliant speakers. And they lack the technique, they lack the gravitas to deliver their ideas with impact. They don't know how to speak in a way that makes people listen. The good news is that the principles and techniques of effective public speaking can be taught, they can be learned. And the truth is most working professionals, many senior executives, are probably operating at 7 out of 10 in terms of their communication potential. You are talented, you are hardworking, you're good at what you do. But if you're honest, you know deep down that you're leaving money and opportunities on the table every time you're asked to present to an audience. Now, my approach isn't about making someone you're not. It's about accessing the best version of yourself when it matters most. And what I'm good at is helping people find the emotional center, find the central truth of their message. I help them find their narrative, one that will resonate with their audience. I help busy executives and entrepreneurs just like you compress years into weeks. I pull your future forward so that you can start holding the attention of your audience today. Do not let another great idea die unspoken. Do not let another opportunity pass you by because you couldn't find the right words at the right time. Your voice matters. Your ideas deserve to be heard. Let me be the one to make sure that's the case. Click the link or visit my website and submit an inquiry. Let's unlock the confident communicator you were always meant to be.
Yeah. And I think that's what everyone's always looking for, right? What is the unique selling point? What is my unfair advantage in this particular market that I can use and I can pull this lever? So as you said, in Taiwan, it's more about money can't buy. Of course it actually can, because if you pay, you can. But you at least have to create that sense of scarcity and it's invitation only, right? And that's what worked there. When you say you're trying to build a brand from the ground up, for anyone who's watching or listening, they want to build a brand from the ground up as well. Can you think of any things in terms of tactics or strategies that worked really well in any of those markets that you think would be worth modeling? Because I know you do a lot of workshops and teaching around this kind of stuff.
I think, and it always goes back to the beginning of our conversation, right? So like in the way of to really identify what is the individual desire.
Okay.
Right, and what is basically the reason? Go even one step further back and say, okay, what led to this desire?
Okay,
right. So that means this is of course something which is time consuming and takes quite some effort. And this again is the reason why some brands or some partners are doing a very good job, because a lot of this extra work is not seen.
Yeah.
Right. So that you really go very, very much behind and really try to understand each and every individual customer, so that you not have to like one framework and you bring it out and you say, this is it. And it works for each and every client.
Okay.
Because the individual clients, again, even in one particular market, are at different levels of the journey, at different stages of the journey. And to really understand this, there's not only different personas, but it's like really different individuals, and then go deep.
Okay, so this is good. I like this. Yeah,
I think this is probably the key thing, regardless whether you're selling cars or watches or high fashion or something else.
So how granular are you guys getting in those brands? How granular do, Maserati, McLaren, Ferrari, how granular do they get on the individual consumer in KYC? Because you have personas, you have avatars, right? You have ICPs, fine. You have a kind of blurry figurine of what a customer might look like. But how granular and individual are you going? When someone walks into that showroom or gets invited to an event, how much due diligence, how much preparation has been done?
Yeah, good question. Here again, it's sometimes I get asked, so can you give me a good service example from a particular car brand?
Yeah.
Right? And the interesting thing is that from a global perspective, it's not even part of the playbook until quite recently.
Okay.
So the entire topic of really serving a customer very well in automotive was not really part and parcel and part of the understanding, because it was very, very much product driven.
Yeah.
In a way of like, we are the brand, we build the product. We have engineered it. We do a bit of marketing. We do a bit of launching, and we give some retailer support. Okay. This now leads into the retail partners, the local partners, just like in each and every market, each and every city. So that means when it comes to this element, this is pretty much just like down to the individual retailer. What do they do, right? Because the car, of course, is supplied, or the cars are supplied globally by just the factory, right? By the headquarters. And then, of course, there are certain kind of marketing standards and all the other kind of things you need to adhere to. But when it comes to really what kind of events do you do, and how deep do you go, and how do you basically cast your market, and what do you do with them? How do you entice them? All in the let's say, following the standards of the brand standards, or the brand values. But otherwise, the real action and interaction always happens in the market, on the retail side. And there's a wide range. There's a wide range. And as I mentioned, right, in Hong Kong, you don't need to explain the education, the brand component, and educate about this. Then it's much more, since we know Hong Kong, with everything around this, to really convince a customer to buy a brand new car that he hardly can drive because he can't go anywhere, and all these kind of things, whether he puts it into collection or whatever else he likes to do. And then in Taiwan, again, it's a different thing, right? You're like where people are getting into the journey and what they want to do with this. Yeah. Right? So I think this is really key, to be very, very particular for each and every client, because what we see as well, beyond automotive, that there is, let's say, a certain kind of disconnect that happened over the last, let's say, 30 years. When I started just under 30 years ago, working with Jaguar cars, it was my very first job, helping as an intern to launch the Jaguar XK8, which was an amazing car. And I still remember the key features or facts of the car was just like a 4-liter V8, 284 horsepower. Back then, it was just like amazing. Think about, I mean, even a 911 back then had only 272 horsepower, right? So something every hot hatch has these days. The difference was that back then, if you could afford the car, you liked the car, this or similar cars in this range, you as an average driver could drive it pretty much to the fullest, right? You had around 300 horsepower, you could use almost all of them. That means the grade of satisfaction was very much product related. You had the car, you drove it, you enjoyed it. That means your joy, your experience was directly related to the car you had. Fast forward, whether it's now Ferrari or Porsche or McLaren, I mean, they launched late last year both their latest Halo models, both 1200 horsepower plus, right? Still 4-liter, still V8, but everything else has changed. That means the average driver has not become 4 times better. The average driver now can drive quite easily, maybe 500 horsepower, 600 horsepower, but that's it. Yeah. That means there is a detachment from the product itself. There is, in this way, a detachment from the brand even. Yeah? And this is what you need to fill in a different way, because it doesn't happen by the product, by the machine, and the experience I generate out of this in itself.
So if there's less enjoyment and utility in the driving experience, I have to get emotional benefits from somewhere else, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So Jaguar, funnily enough, you bring that up, they did a horrible job of their rebrand recently. I think universally kind of disliked. I don't think there was a lot of great feedback for that. What did they get wrong? How was that? I mean, did you have a view on that, on their recent rebrand?
Certainly. I mean, the thing is, I mean, of course, rightly, they got a lot of critique for this one, right? And even if the campaign or the direction would have received in a better way, the biggest issue you would have is product aside. They wanted to change to full EV, right? Full EV, as you've seen over the last year plus, that actually a lot of other brands are dialing back on their EV efforts. They're slowing it down, right? Whether it's Porsche is not selling the Taycan so well. Ferrari has postponed the second EV model. So, and this basically happens across the board, especially in premium and luxury brands. And this is something that you just can't force the market. You can't force customers to buy the cars if they just don't feel like it. Jaguar wanted to go full EV and only EV with the entire brand, which in itself, of course, is very, very risky, especially when you don't have a sister brand or something else that you say, okay, we compensate here. That's one on the product side. The other element, of course, is like the approach they have is when you say, as the claim went, copy nothing, and you really literally change everything, then the question is, what's still left?
What do you stand for then?
What do you stand for, right? Because if you really want to throw everything away, and they're quite boldly claimed as well to say, okay, anyway, we want to have rather 80 to 90% of new clients. We're not looking into retaining existing clients. The question would be why a new client should be attracted by the brand.
Yeah.
Because if there's nothing left of the brand, it can't be the brand. Is it the product alone? Well, then the product, again, is quite interchangeable because then this product could come from anywhere in the world, including any of the new Chinese manufacturers who on the product side do pretty decent jobs, you know?
Yeah.
And I think this was probably something I'm not saying that they have overlooked this, but it is something where now, of course, they're trying to track it back in a way because now, of course, sales of the current models have been completely down. Nobody has trust in the brand anymore, which is one of the key assets you want to have as a luxury brand because desire only happens when you trust. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the desire, at least not in a sustainable fashion. And when you lose trust in the brand equity already falls apart. And this is something which is very, very difficult to build up again.
Yeah. Yeah, funny with Jaguar because they had so much brand equity in their heritage, right? And the legacy behind it, and just throwing it away seems silly. And I like your point on trust, right? And desire. So trust obviously is paramount. I have a nice equation for desire. So desire equals attraction plus obstacle. Desire equals attraction plus obstacle. The obvious way you do that is by creating supply tension, right? So you got a supply-demand imbalance. You say, McLaren, money can't buy this, right? I'm attracted to it, and there's an obstacle. Same way Rolex, you can't walk into a store and just buy it, right? You talked earlier, just to kind of change gears a little bit, to use a driving analogy, you talked a little bit about COVID changing some habits. You also talked about Asia versus Europe. How did you see kind of the luxury industry or luxury tastes in kind of evolve as a result of COVID? How has behavior changed in the last few years? And what are brands not quite getting right about Asia? Because there are so many countries and cultures within it, as you've alluded to, that need to be respected and catered to.
I mean, there are quite a couple of things. Or what you just asked and mentioned. One thing is definitely, even to this day, I start with the last point you mentioned, what Western brands might get wrong or just like overlook or so. To this day, there's still quite a lot of simplification and stereotyping in Western mindsets, which doesn't really help them. What I mean by this is, for them, there's still Asia consists very often out of China, Japan, and the rest is Asia, right? Not understanding like how many tens and hundreds of millions of people are there, how many different diverse cultures we have, and not only different diverse cultures, but as well very diverse appreciation of things and cultural nuances, readiness of the markets, readiness of the clients, so many underlying things and evolutions that are just neglected. And with this, of course, to try to have a global campaign or have something else, of course, usually misfires. And even if you have then one Asia campaign, again, it misfires. Because we know that Europe in itself is not absolutely homogeneous, and yet you can say something that works in Europe in one country somehow could work in another country in Europe. It's still, I would say, by and large, something that works. But the same doesn't work necessarily in Asia, right? For the said reasons. And yet very often it is done in a way that America, for most luxury brands, especially in automotive, is the biggest market. That means there is naturally a strong focus there. Then Europe, because it's still the home turf usually for most of these brands. And then China was, for the longest time, was the key market outside of Europe or outside of America. And of course, since COVID, this has been in decline for a lot of brands, whether it's automotive or non-automotive. We have seen it recently again with Kering and LVMH and all the other big players who were extremely successful pre-COVID and even during COVID. And now a lot of brands basically need to look into it and need to realize, we need to have a different strategy for Korea than for Vietnam, than for Indonesia. And what are we doing with Singapore and all this? On many different levels, because you have product is one, then you have the retail is another element, then the communication. What do you do globally? What do you do regionally? What do you do locally? So there are a lot of things that definitely need to be unpacked. And here I would say it's just because product is only one element. Yeah. And it has become a commodity, more or less, that customers just expect that you deliver good craftsmanship. Because for the longest time, it was, we as a Swiss watch brand, we have 200 years of, 300 years of heritage and craftsmanship and all this. Okay, we expect this. What's your real differentiator, right? And this happens in a lot of other cases as well. Yeah, customers are becoming in Asia increasingly more independent and increasingly more confident. Yes, rightly so. Until 10 years ago, it was very, very simple. When you had a well-established Western brand, most brands were Western brands, luxury brands, that you could sell it to the clients across Asia, and there was a very, very strong pull. Yeah, and you could increase your retail footprint, and you could open new stores, and you could just like sell more. You could go for price hikes, and it was the following was just like seamless, pretty much. And this changed quite a fair bit, especially post-COVID. Yeah, because two things happened. One thing is that some of them just really overstretched it in terms of price hikes. Yeah. So that some clients saying, I cannot or I do not want to follow this anymore. And at the same time, wait a moment, there are alternatives. Yeah. And some of these alternatives now are homegrown, more or less, right? Even though it's when it's not on the same level. And the most popular example, of course, in the last 2 years, 3 years or so is probably just from Porsche and Xiaomi, that you have, instead of a Taycan, you can have a Xiaomi, and therefore it's like a fraction of the price. Product-wise itself, it's not far off. Maybe it's even faster. Yeah. And then you have, which is new as well, now you have a more national pride, especially among mainland Chinese. So they're saying, why should I still buy a Mercedes or Audi or BMW or even Porsche if I can have something which is really fancy and very innovative and really fully understands me? Yes. And this is where it closes the cycle, basically. To like, they fully get me and they respect me.
I completely agree with you. The consumers in Asia, definitely since COVID, they've increased and grown in confidence in their ability to discern what makes a brand good or bad. And I think you're right. Before, there was maybe a little bit of Western arrogance in the sense that we can just hike prices. They're price inelastic. They'll buy it anyway. And that's not the case anymore, right? When the minimum expected standards are up here in terms of craftsmanship now, and you say there is that increasing pride in the national identity, they're starting to follow brands that are more homegrown. I'm still not sure there is a fully global brand that is tip of tongue, top of mind in the West that started in the East. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I mean, some of the EV cars may be going that way. But in the fashion world, I'm struggling to think of one.
Probably not yet. Yeah. I think not yet. However, what we need to see as well is, even when you have maybe now some independent brands are catering more to the home market. Okay. Like when some clients who used to buy maybe a Western brand in China, in Korea, for instance, if they now change gears and saying, okay, now we buy now a homegrown, or to like have a mix, right? Still buy some Western brands, buy more increasingly in increasing numbers here, like homegrown brands. can't wait to see it in export. Right, so that basically things are being bought in the US and the UK or France or Germany or somewhere else. I think it starts much earlier because this is where you see then basically the big difference as well. So that this confidence is there, and once it's there, and it's not just like a one-time trial, but it's something that they repeatedly going to do. And then of course it manifests, and then they will see, and then they will of course try more on other brands. Because at the same time, what happens? It's not that the brands will stand still. It's just like there will be more offerings, whether it's like, again, automotive or fashion and all other areas. What you see as well in hospitality, we have so many amazing Asian hospitality brands,
amazing brands,
where basically just this kind of concept of why not going for something local or at least regional. I mean, usually the customers get satisfied. And that means you will have more and more ecosystems or circles where you're saying, okay, if I touch on a given day in my more luxury segment, 10 different brands, 20 different brands, maybe more and more of them becoming Asian brands.
Let's face it, most corporate training workshops, they're dull, they're uninspiring. And the truth is, when working professionals see the words CPD or training booked in their calendar, their first feeling is not one of excitement, but of dread. As partner and head of corporate training at Quinlan & Associates, I've delivered workshops at family offices, at some of the world's largest listed companies. Whether it's the art of communication, mindset, motivation, or building high-performance teams, I would love to be the one to help you deliver training that your people can actually look forward to, and they will remember for a very long time. Click the link below, or visit my website, michaelxcampion.com, or visit quinlanassociates.com to find out more.
Yeah. Hospitality is exactly like you, where my mind was going. So we've got, Homegrown in Asia, Aman, Capella, Oberoi, Mandarin Oriental, Shangri-La, people like that.
Yeah.
All great brands, fantastic groups. They do a phenomenal job, no question. But it hasn't quite yet, for me, evolved, say, into fashion or haute couture and certain other areas, but that's fine. So I'm thinking, okay, if hospitality does it really well, and luxury is not just about price, we've kind of established that's one lever we can pull, heritage being another lever we can pull. What are some of the other ones that we can pull? Because luxury just isn't just about price, is it? You can't just raise the price of your glassware or whatever it is you're selling and be like, now it's luxury.
Yeah, it's always the big question: what is actually luxury? And you can look it up and you find many different definitions, right? And very different angles, because the fundamental thing as well is luxury means different things to different people, right? Something that is standard to one because he or she can afford a lot is maybe luxury to someone else, and so on. Or maybe 10 years later in life, it's not luxury anymore. So I think from this perspective already, it's important to understand what is luxury. Of course, we do have always these very clear definitions that we say, and nobody would doubt a Rolls-Royce is a luxury automotive brand, right? So with cars or in some other areas, or fashion as well, or watches, it's very, very clear to say, is this now, is it ultra luxury? Is it luxury? Is it base luxury? And all this, right? So other levers we can look into, of course, I mean, scarcity. Is it real? Is it not? How is it curated?
As long as it feels real.
It feels real. And I think this is, again, as you just spoke about, customers, not only here, but here even more in Asia, are becoming increasingly independent, so that they are not following every game anymore necessarily. So when things are feeling fake, whether it's this kind of scarcity or just like the prices or some experience are too repetitive or something else, it becomes very, very difficult. And on this note, I mean, when you think of, I think it was just last week that in LVMH or LV opened the Louis in Shanghai.
Right.
It's kind of this big, impressive ship basically in the middle of Shanghai, which again picks up the theme of what they always had, which is traveling. This is the theme they always used. When you think about just like, I think it was 3 years ago here in Singapore in front of MBS, then they had this trunk show.
The giant trunk.
A trunk show, this went around the world. who uses a trunk these days? Nobody.
Not many.
But it still remains a centerpiece of their communication and their retail strategy.
Yeah.
When you go to the airport here, it looks like a trunk.
Yeah.
So therefore, they always go back to this kind of theme. So to your question about like what else is luxury is it needs to be a meaningful theme or concept or something that a customer wants to belong to, which is maybe less tangible. Right? Because when you think of Louis Vuitton, and when some might be very aspirational, they just buy a very small pouch or a key ring or something else to buy into the brand, right? And because when you buy this, then you never buy it for the functional purpose, for the functional reason. No. You always buy it for the bigger thing that the brand stands for you.
Yeah, and you'll rationalize the purchase.
And then you rationalize
afterwards,
it, right? And so in this way, for me as well, my very first ever luxury purchase was very funny in the early 1990s when I went to New York, one of my first times, and this was a time when Asia didn't really exist in the mind of Europeans, because it was very much the great world, the wonderful world, the big things came all from America. So going to New York and going up and down Fifth Avenue, eventually I went into Fendi. And I bought a keyring, probably the equivalent of $50 or something like this. And it was like my treasured item for many, many years, because I just graduated from high school. I didn't have any money. And so therefore, this was something which was extremely meaningful to me. And now products and everything has fundamentally changed. But this very feeling remains for first-time buyers or for people who are really aspirational. And this is something where brands need to be very careful with. Because that you have, when we think about this pyramid we had before, you always need to create the fan base, that the fan base becomes aspirational, and ideally that they grow up over time to become then more and more loyal and stronger and more important clients. And that you always find the right means to interact and engage with these clients and give them what they need for the next moment.
Yeah, you're right. I think people can sense when a brand or a company is being inauthentic in the way they're presenting themselves, because the essence of any good brand is truth. It comes down to truth. Like, as you said with the Louis Vuitton, it's the trunk, it's the logo. From memory, it's evocative of the shadows in one of the cathedrals, right?
Yes,
in France, right? That gave them the logo. It's always about travel. If you start to change your tune, and there is no sense of place, then it becomes very inauthentic and forced. But it's interesting that you still remember your very first purchase, right? That's cool. I like that, right?
Yeah.
I could see you being transported back in time. So what did it give you as a young man? It gave you confidence. It gave you a sense of belief, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was really a special moment, because it might have been $50 or something like this. It was definitely a big part of my
a lot of money
travel budget.
Sure. Yeah.
And of course, I mean, I could carry my keys beforehand, so this was not really the need.
Need it, right?
But then, of course, I attach so many emotional things to this, so that whenever I looked at it, over the many, many years I used it until it was literally falling apart, for many, many times this was a keepsake for me as well, right? And remember, even because most other shops I shopped at this very day were just like very simple, cheap shops. So I carried a number of plastic bags, and I had the audacity basically just to ask the salesperson, because it was like a coin size key ring I bought. Leather, was very nicely done. And you got a small box about this size, squarish box. And normally you would have gotten a paper bag just to carry it out, maybe this size. And I had the audacity to ask for one of these big ones where you usually carry a suitcase in, a Fendi suitcase in. So the big ones you have as well from the other brands, right? So I basically stuffed in all my other very cheap plastic bags into this one. And I literally felt like a king in the afternoon, just like strolling up and down Fifth Avenue in New York. Yeah. And I felt for a moment, even though I was cheating myself, while treating myself, I made it.
Yeah.
I made it for this time, for this moment. So that this was really, and in hindsight, this was probably one of my first times that I realized the power
of brand, yeah,
can really have on you, even when you normally in your normal daily life don't have any access to their, let's say, core brands, to the core products of this brand, but you really want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And this is something, for me, this is 30 years ago, but this is what happens each and every day. Sometimes it's very young people like me back then. Sometimes it's people who are already much older and they really want to get into something. And even once you got into this, there's usually always the next step that you want to get into. And therefore, the psychology of consumers is one of the key things brands need to understand.
Yeah.
Very well, and in a very differentiated way across generations, demographics, and definitely from a cultural perspective as well.
Yeah, I love that story. You're buying a feeling, aren't you? When you walk down the street with a big Fendi bag. My mum does the same to this day. She does it all the time. Asking the shopkeeper for the bigger bag. The audacity, shove all the cheaper plastic bags in there. But yeah, you feel like $1 million for a moment while you walk down Fifth Avenue.
100%.
And they also love it because you're a walking billboard.
Exactly.
Free marketing, free advertising.
100%.
Yeah, but the best brands, they engineer and cultivate this desire. They cultivate this feeling, hopefully in an authentic way. Yeah. Where both sides win ultimately.
Yeah. And in this way, I mean, another very interesting way when you look at it, what you have now more and more that brands are trying to build kind of an ecosystem in a way, a brand ecosystem. Good example as well is just like what Porsche is doing here in Singapore. And Singapore is fortunate enough that Porsche globally considers Singapore as a test bed for new ideas. I mean, they launched the new Porsche studio early last year in downtown, so in a very urban area, so not like where usually all the cars are, which here in Hong Kong is Alexandra Road, is Lenky Road, is all this, is a bit out there. So I mean, it's basically only really when you're on a mission to buy a car or to look at a car, you would go there. You would normally not go to a car dealer. So they've definitely flipped the script. So it's basically now you have a very experiential kind of concept. You just go, because they have a coffee as well, where you just literally can go grab a coffee. You buy a coffee because it's from Bake and Cook, and but you're already uplifted because it's not just like a normal Bake and Cook branch. It's a Bake and Cook branch at Porsche. The price is exactly the same.
Okay.
But the feelings are already different because even when you meet there for friends, you can have as well lunch and other options. You have the merchandise around, you have the cars around, you have the entire setup basically, functionally, that the car dealership would have. However, it doesn't feel so much in the face like a normal car dealership does. Yeah. Because most car dealerships, especially luxury ones, are often quite intimidating. You have, everything is nice, is polished, everything is on brand, or even more on product than on brand. And it basically signals you as a customer, come and buy. It's very transactional. Yeah. And this is basically how, especially automotive luxury, has been pretty much to this day in most cases. It's very much
purchase intent if you're walking in there. Yeah.
This is what we have. This is what you can buy. If you can afford it, we can look into it. Yeah. And now changing it in the way of saying to like, okay, we as a brand, we need to be more accessible. And at the same time, having the challenge, you want to be inclusive, thinking of the pyramid, you want to get more people coming in. And at the same time, you need to remain exclusive. Yeah. Because you need to have for every tier a different approach. And if you have one place, you still need to find different ways to cater for them differently. Yeah. And again, in the Porsche case, what is really special here is now they had this morning actually, just like they had the groundbreaking of the Porsche Experience Center out in Changi. So that basically by end of next year or early 2027, they will have the Porsche studio, they will have the valet parking at Changi, they have the Experience Center, they have their loyalty app. So they have a lot of things going and all basically so that they really control and have the opportunity to really control all the different touch points online and offline for fans and all the other tiers of clients they have as well.
Yeah. With the Porsche Experience Center, I think you're right that the future of luxury is going to be more and more experiential. We have to get people involved in these tangible, very tactile experiences where we can touch, feel things at an accessible level to then ascend through the tiers. But if everyone can get a piece of it, is it then still luxury?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So this is something where it's a fine line, because from a brand perspective, you want to maximize profits, quite simply, right? And from a consumer perspective, you want to be in, but once you're in, you don't want someone else to follow. In reality, okay. If you're really on the top, you're not necessarily welcoming all the others to follow you as
We're
well.
status-seeking primates. Accept it.
Exactly. Yeah. So and that means it's a very fine line from brands. For Ferrari, for instance, they always had the philosophy to say, okay, we always want to produce one car less as we find demand, as we see demand, right? Which was very true until a couple of years back. Now, of course, as a listed company, it's always then again a bit different, and then again it depends on the individual products, like how much this is true. However, their cap is at 14,000 cars from a production capacity. Okay. So that means they would not go and say, okay, let's become a 20,000 or 30,000. We are talking about annual car sales, global car sales, right? And with some of the other brands, it's a bit similar, so that they're saying, okay, we cap production, and then it's rather about how do we allocate those cars or these products just globally.
Yeah,
and that you really still have then the opportunity to, how do you, sometimes you subsegment or you tier differently, right? That you say, okay, certain kind of things are accessible to everyone who has the money, and others not so much, right? Where you have, again, in automotive, whether it's McLaren or Ferrari and other brands as well, that you always have then limited models, and then you have the halo models, which are really by invitation only, and some segments in between where you still always have enough opportunity to make it exclusive enough, and somebody who wants to upgrade from a good customer to an extremely good customer or a collector, there's still always the opportunity for brands to offer this.
Yeah. Because I feel like so many brands, services, products, they attach the word luxury, kind of wanton, right? This is a luxury good, right? Yeah. We can say it. It's my brand. I can say it's a luxury good. There is this semantic saturation, right, with the word luxury. So, I mean, do you have any favorite definitions or, working definitions of what makes something bona fide luxury? Or, I guess my question is, when everything is luxury, nothing is luxury. So how do we, as a brand owner, circumvent this in a genuine but savvy way?
For me personally, I would always say, since again it depends on the category, on the segment, and on the individual to some element. And luxury is something that you're not selling, but something that you're perceiving. And on this one, I would always say meaning over material.
Okay.
This is my personal view, and then of course you have, let's say, an opportunity to define or cluster things in a way which are more publicly understood.
Go deeper on that for me. The meaning versus material. Is that just the level of effort and pre-work and pre-thought we've done into sculpting what we stand for?
Yeah, I think when it comes to meaning, because meaning only can be received and perceived by an individual, and it's the same when we think about like output versus outcome, right? When we're saying, but we have put so many hours into this, and the material is so special, and when you look into this, and that's the interesting thing, just from a brand perspective, when you do brand audits, very often it's very common when we just take Swiss watchmakers, which still are, of course, the benchmark globally and will remain like this probably for years to come. No matter which brand you take, when you don't look at the logo and maybe as very distinct features, when you just look at the description, it's hard to tell which brand are we talking about because they all go on about heritage and craftsmanship and precision and all these kind of things, which again is something where I say this is all that's all the output category of things, right? So like we have done this and this and this and this and this. But very little in the way of like, okay, once you get this, what will it do for you? And this is what I mean with meaning, right? In the way of like, okay, how will buying this product or service change your life, have an impact on how you feel, how you see things, how, the experience basically. Every time you have it, or once it's part of your life, or once it completes your collection, or whatever else it might be. And I think this is something where brands in this increasingly stronger competition will need to look into more. And this is something where you cannot have just like one size fits all. Like we have a global strategy, we have a global campaign and all this. A lot of brands still can do this, but especially when it comes to the top segment, then this won't suffice any longer.
Yeah, I like that. I'm thinking of the 21-year-old Matthias who's skipping down Fifth Avenue in New York. And it's about transformation, isn't it? And transportation. You've been transformed into a different state of being. You've transported to somewhere else psychologically as a result of investing in the brand. Yeah. Right?
And absolutely. And because once you have this opportunity, just like that a product and a brand or the purchase of a product has really done something to you and feels you make better, right? Because this is very often, especially when we're looking into the aspirational luxury. Why do you have a lipstick from a luxury brand? Because sometimes this is the only thing somebody can maybe afford. And the same like with the category of key rings and smaller luxury items. When it comes to brand equity, and to your earlier question, what really means luxury, you could have, of course, a much more drastic approach in saying, okay, let's go away with all of aspirational luxury. Let's take away all the sunglasses and all the other things, and let's only really start at the real hard luxury items. And that we then really would have, again, a bigger difference between, okay, so these are the normal products and premium products, great quality, great functionality and all these kind of things. And then we have nothing. And only then luxury starts again, as we used to have it maybe until 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But this is, of course, already from a commercial perspective, totally unrealistic. And from a social, emotional perspective as well, nothing desirable either. So therefore, there will be always, for the majority of people and consumers, there will be always this longing for, I want to have a piece of something better. Because this is what luxury basically means for most people, getting something better.
Yeah.
Where again, the product,
belief in better.
The product is only the vessel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And whether this vessel has craftsmanship or heritage or something else, it all shapes or is always part of the storytelling, right? Lovely. And therefore, I think this is very important. Like to really see how do you tell your story to which kind of audience.
Yeah. No, I think that's the perfect word is vessel, right? The best brands are a vessel for transformation, I think. Let's talk about your transformation in the last part of this podcast. You obviously were in the world of luxury automotive for decades. Yeah. 2024, just last year, you left McLaren, went out on your own. You set up LuxLink. You teach, you do corporate training, you consult on all things luxury branding in Asia. Talk to me honestly, man to man, because I've done the similar thing, same as you. We've got 2 kids. Yeah. You've left the salary behind. Yeah. You're out on your own in the world. How have you found this evolution and this next stage in your career?
it hasn't been the very first time for me. So
Yeah.
therefore I had a bit of a preparation.
Which makes it easier. Yeah.
However, it's definitely a challenge. It's very clear because I mean, the one day you have the big brand behind you, and whoever you talk to, whether it's the retail partners, agencies, whoever else, or you want to reach out to someone, you want to grow your network, whether LinkedIn or somewhere else, people are always very happy and very open to talk to you, right? Simply because you bear a title and you come and you're associated with the brand, right? Most recently, it was McLaren. A few years back, it was Porsche. You get your Christmas hampers for Christmas. Until you realize it's not Matthias who receives the Christmas hampers, it's the GM who receives the Christmas hampers, right? So therefore, I think it's always a very healthy reality check that you then, and it's sobering. It's clearly sobering, right? That you have the same level of experience and expertise one day, and 24 hours later, your value in the perception of whatever the public has changed fundamentally.
Goes back exactly to what you said about perception, right?
Exactly.
Perception. The value is still exactly the same as 24 hours ago.
Exactly.
But the market perception, you no longer have.
Has changed.
Yeah.
That means you really need to redefine and need to rebuild. And when before you just like, because of your role, your title and your function, you don't need to explain yourself, what you're doing, how you're doing, and why you're doing as you're doing. Then you go exactly back to this. You need to say, hey, who am I? And what is the benefit you could have when you work with me?
Yes.
And why should you listen to me in the first place? and all this, right? Because and this is definitely something which makes you learn a lot again about yourself, because then you just go through cycles of evolution quite clearly, and where you find then, okay, so what is it that you do? And then you take a step back and saying, what is what you really do?
Yeah.
Right. And how can you really make a difference? There are many consultants out there. There are lots of trainers out there. A lot of people are very good at many things, and that you then find and define an area where there may be not so many people, and that you find an area where you're saying, okay, well, even when you look at yourself critically, this is something where you really can help to make a difference.
Yeah. And when you kind of clearly define your niche, then you can lean into it and people get to know you for it, right?
Exactly.
There's probably a lot of people watching and listening who are maybe a similar stage of life, right? They're maybe, in their 40s, they've got 2 kids like you and I. They're thinking about leaving banking, thinking about leaving, being a lawyer, whatever it is, an investment banker. What's giving you the drive and spurring you on to keep going with it and not just go back to finding a job in the corporate world?
I think it's very important to understand that there are definitely ups and downs. There are bumps on the road, and not few. And so therefore, I think it's very important to see what do you really enjoy doing. And I think it always helps when you have a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset and spirit, and whether you do it as a solopreneur or whether you plan to build a team or any size of company. I think that you really need to understand as well that, especially in the beginning, you need to do everything by yourself. You need to build a product or a service, your presentation, you do the business development, you do everything yourself. Chief of everything. You do your LinkedIn post, everything, right? And to really find the joy in all these kind of sometimes challenging things as well, because, and this already many years before was always for me to say, okay, I always seek in what can I learn in a situation, whether it's a good or maybe a rougher situation, to always see, okay, what does it help me? What does it bring me to really, from a perspective of continuous improvement or Kaizen or whatever you want to call it, just like to always say, okay, next time it will be faster. Next time it will be smoother. Next time I'll be stronger. And with this way, that the working as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, of course, is that you really do something in a direction, especially when it works and it develops over time, improves over time. This is what you have done. And something that not so quickly somebody can take away from you.
Yeah,
right?
Because it's been earned.
Because it has been built by you, right? It has been built by you, and you built then your network, and then the people you talk to you because of you, not because of the brand behind you, right? Not because of the corporate machine behind you, but really because of you, right? And therefore, it might take sometimes longer. However, it's more sustainable, I would believe. And I think this is probably the biggest advantage that you then have. And so therefore, if someone is ready for it, I mean, I always can recommend just try a side hustle first and test it this way. If you're ready for the big plunge at once, just go for it.
Just back yourself, right? Yeah, I think you use the word joy, and I think it's very, very important to always remember to orient yourself towards that and finding joy, because when you are chief of everything and it does get hard, you have to remember why you started and why you got into it and why you're going to keep going. Yeah. For you, what does it look like when you find the most joy in your current role? Which parts of the job light you up the most, do you think?
I think because, I mean, I have different areas that I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm forcing you to choose a hat.
Yeah, exactly.
Which one lights Matthias up the most?
And for me, it's about the consulting, training, corporate training, as well as teaching roles that I have. And for me, it's always the part when I work with people, whether it's like a bigger group of people from a corporate team or just like individuals, and I see there is a click happening, right? So when people understand, it might be a concept, it might be something we have been working on, a challenge they came up with, and they really struggled, and this is for me basically the biggest joy, really. When I then have these individuals that are really saying, "Oh wow, yeah, now I get it."
That landed.
That landed. And so I think because this is, it's so direct, it's unfiltered, right? You have 5 people, 50 people, 500 people, big audiences, very big audiences. And this is just this immediate feeling that you get, this immediate response, right? And and this is something that's very special and meaningful to me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's nice to know when you've made a real difference, right? Yeah. Final question, or maybe not, maybe there'll be a couple more. But is there something, this is a question I ask many of my guests, is there something particularly memorable that someone said to you in the past, maybe a mentor, a family member, colleague, a boss? What's kind of the words that resonate and live with you?
It was just many years ago, it was something that was like, maybe dropped en passant in a way, and then I kind of picked it up when it was dropped already, and made it to some extent a bit of a mantra for me, actually. And this is it's only 2 words or 3 words really. It's like real and relevant, okay? And what it means basically is, so whatever I do and look at is like to keep it real, and to have it relevant for myself, relevant for the people I'm working with, I'm talking to, and all this, right? So that means that the real is, of course, you're like being genuine, being clear, being straightforward, being transparent, all this, right? And especially in the ways I've worked over all these years is, I have seen a lot of concepts and visions and things like this. And for me, the biggest part or the most interesting was always just to plug it into real life, and to make the reality check. And that's why I call it as well retail reality, because very often I've worked on the global headquarters as well as regional headquarters and retail level. So the biggest fun is always when you talk to real people, both employees as well as customers, real face to face. This is where the biggest learning is, and where you stress test and challenge the best concept. And this is where this real thing is very, very important. And the same goes with the relevance. Just because it's the greatest product, just because it's the best price, it doesn't make it necessarily relevant for the person you're speaking with. Yeah. And it goes for yourself as well. So that sometimes certain kind of things are just not relevant, because relevant can be as well top priority, could be replaced with this as well, right? That you're saying, okay, well, yeah, it's important, but at the moment it has not the top priority. So, and therefore, for me, I always like to look at things through these double lens, in the way of saying to like, okay, does it make sense? Is it real? is it relevant for myself, for the others? It might be even for my kids to some extent. So it's a multi-purpose tool, a multi-purpose lens.
Yeah.
And so to your question, I think this is something once dropped, I occupied it, I made it my own, and use it to this day.
Awesome. Matthias, I really enjoyed the conversation. I think we'll draw a line under it there. Where can my audience find you? Where's the best place to go on social media? What are the best places to follow your journey?
The easiest, of course, is LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you can reach me there. By the time this is streaming, I should have my website up and running as well.
Awesome. I'm going to hold you to it. We'll hold ourselves accountable. You've got a week or two, maybe 2 weeks.
Exactly. And so LinkedIn will be definitely the easiest way to find me there. I'm posting there quite regularly. And then, thank you very much for having me today.
And I can confirm there's some great stuff on LinkedIn. You're putting out some really good information, really entertaining, insightful. And I always learn something when I read your stuff. So thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Cheers, Matthias. Thank you, mate. So it's a tradition on Playing the Inner Game for me to do a few key takeaways from every single episode. So here are my 2 or 3 takeaways from my episode, the conversation I just had with Matthias. With Matthias, I think number 1, the takeaway I got from him was that people with luxury brands, people are buying a feeling. They are buying a feeling associated with that brand, and they are looking to the brand as being a vessel for transformation. And the very act of buying something, even something as mundane as a keyring, he said a $50 keyring from when he was 21 years old, it gave him this feeling of empowerment. It gave him this feeling of status, gave him this feeling of confidence that he'd arrived, that he'd made it in the world and he was a somebody. And right or wrong, I think when it's done in an authentic way, and when it lights someone up the way it did him, and it does for so many other people as well, I think that's where it shows you the real power of a brand and the effect it can have on someone's psyche, the effect it can have on someone's confidence, the effect it can have on their worldview. So I think as long as what you have built is authentic and that the brand operates from a central place of truth, and there is a genuine sense of place, there is some legacy and craftsmanship associated with it. And again, even if it's a new brand, it's not necessarily about decades and decades of legacy and longevity. It is about, does this brand speak to something that is a universal truth that sings to me? Is there something within this brand that relates to me? He talked about real and relevant, didn't he? Is there something in this brand that makes me feel connected to a higher feeling or a sense of community or an aspirational self that I would like to one day reach? And I think that's what the luxury brands do best in appealing to that aspirational sense of self and self-actualization and self-fulfillment. Key takeaway number 2 with Matthias was that concept of the ecosystem and the pyramid. So if we think about luxury brands as having an entire ecosystem or having an ascension pyramid, there should be something for someone at every touch point and every price point. And I did kind of tease him with the accusation of semantic saturation, right? If everything is luxury, then nothing is luxury, right? If everyone can access and touch the brand, then it no longer becomes luxury. But he's right. It's not only is it not commercially unviable, but you actually do want to create this ecosystem where everyone, even whether it's a cup of coffee at the Porsche showroom for $5, someone can at least temporarily enter the world of Porsche and experience what it might be like to own a bit of that brand equity and to be a part of the Porsche community. So if you are someone who is designing a luxury brand or works for one or is involved with one, I think there's lessons for us all there in creating an ecosystem and a whole suite of products, services, touch points where anyone, no matter where they're from and how much disposable income they might have, can still have a meaningful interaction with your brand. I think for me, key takeaway number 3, the final takeaway was when, I connected with Matthias on our shared journey in the sense that we're both consultants, speakers, corporate trainers, lecturers at universities. We go and do workshops for various brands all across Asia, and we've left the corporate world behind. We still interact with it. We still engage with it. Of course, we have meaningful interactions with our corporate clients all the time, but we have removed ourselves and detached ourselves from the safety net of a fixed monthly salary. And that's incredibly scary for a lot of people, especially for us in our 40s, 2 kids to support. But I think when you have a very clear North Star, when you have a very clear purpose and you have that joy that we talked about, when you genuinely love what you do, And I know I love what I do. I know he loves what he does. When I see a point land with someone and they start to view the world in a different way because of something I've said, because of something I've taught them, that is where the joy lies. And that is what keeps him going. And it's what keeps me going. And it's why we're going to keep doing what we do. Thank you.